Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ciytywide and she is finally back. She's finally back with another impact analysis. If she could stop referring to herself in the third person, that would be great. I've been wanting to do this video for a really long time, but I've also been a little bit nervous about it. See, I love both watching movies and TV shows, but I know for a fact that those suckers come with an impact. Especially so because the average cost of a movie in Hollywood is around $65 million. And with those budgets, it's bound to be unsustainable. At least that's been my overall understanding. But I think we should dive a little bit further into the industry and talk about where that impact is coming from and also what's being done to reduce it or what's not being done as well. And I want to use this video to highlight how some filmmakers are trying to make a difference. So without further ado, or actually with a little bit of an ado, this video is sponsored. This video is sponsored by Fishtown Films, and low-key the most perfect sponsor for this video because Fishtown Films strives to make films as sustainably as possible. Their latest movie Ciytywide generated 16 ounces of waste. Now the average film production in Hollywood generates around 350 tons of garbage, but we'll get more into that in a second. This production company looks at everything from energy, wardrobes, props, sets, and so much more to lower the impact, and I cannot wait to see what they're going to do in the future. Fishtown Films is not only set out to better their own production, they are also here to change the narrative of sustainability in the film industry for other productions. Because we need an industry-wide change of mind when it comes to how film and TV is produced today. So thank you so much to Fishtown Films for helping me with this analysis. You can watch Ciytywide with a 50% discount via the link in the description. And supporting these projects is vital because the successes of small sustainable films ultimately decides if bigger productions get involved or not. And you can find the trailer to the movie on citywidemovie.com. Each purchase or rental of the movie will go straight into the production of the next amazing, sustainable, inclusive, diverse, queer, cool, badass film. And if you watched even the trailer for Ciytywide, there might be a familiar face or two. Now, before we get into the actual impact, I would also like to acknowledge that this video is specifically going to be about the environmental impact of Hollywood and film production in general. But there are so many other issues that we need to dive into when it comes to Hollywood. There's so many ways where this industry needs to change. If we're looking both at cultural and social issues, there's plenty. But if we get started on these things, we're never gonna get to the environmental things because I'm just gonna get too riled up. So I think for now, let's just stick to the environmental impact. We could also talk about the treatment of minorities, or sexism, or beauty standards, or racism, or the gentrification of Black and Indigenous narratives. Anyway, there's so much to get into. This is the environmental impact. To make this video just a tad bit more organized, I'm dividing it into 2 different chapters, maybe more. I'll figure that out later. But we're going to talk about the impact on set and on screen. Firstly, let's talk about the impact of actually making the movie. This chapter is going to be about like the set, the materials, all that kind of thing that happens behind the scenes. Producing 1 hour of television will emit 9.2 tons of carbon dioxide, according to a study by Albert commissioned by BAFTA, which means that an hour of television will have a higher impact than the average Brit for a whole year, or an impact that's about twice as high as the global average. A single sound stage made for a set, and mind you that a set of either a TV show or a movie can have multiple, many sound stages and general sets overall. One of these things can lead to the deforestation of 4,000 hectares of wild forest, according to a study from the UCLA, which is roughly the same as 9,000 sports fields for one soundstage. This is because of a lightweight plywood, which is easy to work with and build with, and this wood is often unsustainably harvested from rainforests. And I should say they are very rarely reused. A big budget blockbuster can easily emit over 2,800 tons of CO2, and the biggest films can easily emit over 3,000 tons of CO2, or about 33 tons of CO2 per shooting day. For the US TV and film industry, it comes out to an annual lavish 15 million tons of CO2, which is roughly 25 million barrels of oil or 17 billion pounds of coal. And now that we're speaking of coal, fossil fuels is by far the biggest polluter and the biggest cause for climate change, and that is no different in the film industry. For film and TV, we have production vehicles, we have transportation, we have power generators, all of which run on fossil fuels. And these things represent roughly 50% of the impact of the film and TV industry. It comes from these things that require fossil fuels. This data is from a study that was conducted by SPA, and it included data from Amazon Studios, Disney, Fox, NBC, Universal, Netflix, Sony Pictures Entertainment, CBS, and Warner Media. And according to Albert, one of the most effective ways of lowering carbon emissions, also in the TV and film industry, I guess from Albert specifically from the movie and TV industry, is also by looking at where their power is coming from. But when it comes to fossil fuels, we also have to talk about traveling. Film and TV is often shot on numerous locations, and very often in various countries. And having a whole production team travel from country to shoot different scenes, yeah, it comes with a really big impact. And now this isn't the most helpful comparison of all time, but the transportation impact of the TV and film industry is roughly the same as 11 one-way tickets from Earth to the moon. I don't know what you're supposed to do with that, so let's dive a little bit further down into what happens on the film set. One major issue is the overconsumption of anything, really. It's not uncommon for a big movie or TV show to purchase hundreds and hundreds, thousands, millions of props. Look at it this way, if a film or a TV show is showing a gala scene, a big formal fancy dinner, they have to buy everything from the red carpet to dresses to tableware, tables, curtains. Every single thing that you see on screen has most likely been purchased from new and will most likely not be used again. That adds up to millions of small prop things. Everything from the chandelier in the ceiling to the little fancy golden napkin rings. Everything has been purchased from new. Everything will be used once and then discarded. I guess when you have millions and millions, you lose grip of what conscious consuming looks like. I read this interview in The Independent with the Danish director Susanne Bier, and she said that she often, when she's on location, she has a truck filled with lenses that she could potentially use because it's easier to have everything on hand in case you change your mind rather than planning out what lenses you need the day before the shoot. So instead, they just purchase a truckload worth of equipment that might not be used, that might be used simply just for convenience. And I understand the appeal. I've been on film sets myself. I've worked with different projects. I get the appeal. It's just when you have millions and millions of dollars, in my opinion, inconvenience is not a good enough excuse to not be sustainable. One aspect of the filmmaking process that's been heavily criticized is the destruction of natural environments and habitats. And this is not a new thing, by the way. We have been seeing the destruction of resources and natural habitats when making films ever since we started making films. And yes, I have some examples here. During the filming of Gone with the Wind, mind you, this was in the production while an economic depression was lingering. The filmmakers used old film sets during the burning of Atlanta scene, which, by the way, has also been credited as one of the scenes that has then now caused Hollywood to be overall really fascinated with explosions and fire and the spectacle of destruction. Anyway, they used old film sets to burn for this scene, which caused hazardous fumes and smoke of toxins to be released into the air, polluting the LA area. In the movie The Vanishing American from 1924, the production team brought bison from the Great Plains to Catalina Island in California because of the movie production, and they are still there to this day. They were not brought back. They are now just there. In Gene Kelly's famous dance scene from 1950, They used so much water. The production in general used so much water to produce the raining effect that water pressure fell in a huge area, so much so that the production team had to film and create the scene during the night where less people would notice. These examples are just to show that sustainability and conscious consuming isn't an inherent part of the production of a movie or TV show. It's not something that magically or naturally just exists there. It's something that needs to be added now, much later, where systems are already in place, which is why it's so incredibly difficult for this industry to follow suit with sustainability. Conscious consuming isn't naturally built into the filmmaking industry, and as such, a lot of filmmakers are incredibly inexperienced when it comes to how to save resources. One of the great challenges I've also seen in this regard is that a lot of movie makers feel like their work is a little bit too important to be restricted by sustainability. But the fact that a lot of filmmakers do not feel this way is not necessarily surprising to me, it's just frustrating. And I mean, we are talking about an industry that's handing out $10,000 gift baskets at award shows, so yeah, the bar is definitely low. These tendencies are apparent through the vast majority of Hollywood's history and also today. In 1997, the wastewater from the production of Titanic polluted a Mexican village and reduced fish levels by 30%. The movie The Beach from 2000 led to the destruction of Maya Bay Beach in Thailand. The crew on Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales allegedly dumped chemical waste while filming in Queensland, Australia. Mad Max Fury Road damaged sensitive areas in the African Atlantic coast and endangered local reptiles and cacti. And the same production also left tire tracks in an untouched and environmentally fragile landscape in Namibia. The production team for The Expendables 2 damaged a protected bat habitat in 2011. I could literally keep going. Now, one film that was praised a lot for its environmentally conscious profile when it came out in 2009 was Avatar. The movie was said to be entirely digitally rendered, which meant that it should be more sustainable than movie productions using practical effects. However, the book Hollywood's Dirtiest Secrets, The Hidden Environmental Costs of the Movies, the author Hunter Vaughn shed some light on the claims made about Avatar. Apparently, although the movie was promoted as completely digital, real-life sets and wardrobes were still built anyway to help the production team make as realistic renditions as possible. As such, the green branding for Avatar is at best sloppy and at worst just hardcore greenwashing. Now let's talk about on-screen or in-story and how environmentalism or polluting products are used in TV and movies on screen. So what we are seeing, not everything that happens behind the scenes, but you get the point. Climate change, environmentalism, plastic, fossil fuels, all this kind of stuff is constantly added in or affecting the stories that we are being told and that we are consuming. As such, I think it's pretty vital to talk about the cultural and social impact of actually seeing these things on screen and how movie makers are implementing them or not implementing them. I think we should take a look at the study called Flip the Script on Plastic from Plastic Pollution Coalition. This study analyzed the contents of 51 hours of TV from over 60 episodes from 30 different shows. The study found that an average of 28 single-use plastic items were featured per episode, as well as one mass plastic event, which is a scene where hundreds of thousands of plastic props are used, like a supermarket scene, for instance. Furthermore, this study found that 93% of the plastic was not disposed of properly, nor were their disposals showed or mentioned on screen, which contributes to the lack of awareness regarding plastic waste. Having characters in shows or movies just toss plastic packaging into a bin without mentioning or showing recycling or any kind of consciousness regarding this piece of material has always bothered me greatly. It's such a one show that always comes to mind when thinking of plastic packaging is, I remember watching The Big Bang Theory many years ago, and even before I went into sustainability, even before I heard about zero waste, I remember feeling so bothered that they would always eat. Every time we saw them eat, basically, it would always be in this apartment with these big takeout containers, and never once would they talk about recycling. It was always just not there. It was never mentioned. And I always thought it was weird that they used all this packaging for their takeout, which, I mean, like, what else are you supposed to do? But it's not real people. It's a set, and they could easily have written something in about where that packaging went, because I, as a consumer, as an audience, I always had questions wondering sort of how big are your bins, because you have so much plastic packaging. But building on that, it also ponders the question, should TV and movies be responsible for how they portray sustainability or the lack thereof? Should film and movies depict an ideal or reality? As Kate Fobb from Hollywood Health and Society mentions in the webinar Crafting Hollywood Storylines that Flip the Script on Plastics, we have examples from the past of how entertainment has helped to perpetuate certain behaviors to make them more mainstream. In the past, it was completely common to not use a safety belt when you went for a drive in your car. And after a longer campaign which advocated for safety belts and using safety belts, the entertainment industry had to make a deliberate choice to always show people putting on their safety belts whenever they sat down into a vehicle. And behold, that changed the consumer perspective of when and why we needed to use safety belts. It helped perpetuate the idea that you sit in your car, you put on your safety belt. That hasn't always been such a natural, such a normal thing to do, but it's something we see over and over again also in the products that we consume for entertainment. When we see something happening all the time, it doesn't have to be mentioned or be like a big thing, but when we watch it over and over again, that normalizes that type of behavior and makes it more likely that we also will start doing that. So the depiction of using safety belts led to more people using safety belts in reality. So think what that type of mechanism can do for sustainability. So in a similar fashion, showing people not drinking out of a disposable water bottle, but using a reusable water bottle, using a tote bag, recycling properly, picking up litter, and like what they eat, any kind of thing. It doesn't have to alter the narrative, the story, or even the characters on screen. But those tiny small things can help normalize making those switches in your everyday life. But once again, is that really the responsibility of filmmakers? And to that question, I would say I don't think there's any point in arguing at this point that what we see in movies and TV, what we see in entertainment, what we see in our cultural landscape, we consume a lot of media. And that type of media has a massive impact on our behavior, on how we talk, on what we crave, on things that we do. We don't even have to actually watch the thing in order to be affected by it. Movies and TV have potential to have massive cultural and social impact, simply just from existing. I think it makes absolutely zero sense to not include the makers of those products in the conversation about how we act as a global society. They have a larger responsibility, just like larger industries and larger corporations have a bigger impact, have a bigger responsibility than the individual consumer. I think we should regard the creators of big movies and TV with big $1 million budgets with the same kind of scrutiny as we have towards the CEO of Coca-Cola or Jeff Bezos or the entirety of Shein, because they have the same type of cultural impact. Furthermore, and this is just like a little off topic, but I think there's a general mismatch between the level of outspokenness we see from some big profiles in the entertainment industry and the impact of the entertainment industry. So it's not uncommon to see big philanthropists in the entertainment industry, big actors or directors, etc., supporting charities regarding sustainability or being outspoken in general about sustainability while not really taking any actual direct steps in their own industry, in their own projects, to be more sustainable. It's very much, and now I'm just a party pooper, but it's very much giving the same as billionaires making up charities for tax write-offs. It's giving that sometimes, just I have a whole video about the impact of billionaires and their philanthropy and how supporting a charity doesn't mean that you can just do whatever you want. I would love to see the film and TV industry follow suit of some of their big outspoken eco profiles, because just creating foundations and supporting charities are all tax write-offs, which is why I am so skeptical when that is your only type of activism. Because why not start with your own industry? I don't know. It's very much giving buy a pear, plant a tree. Now, a lot of plastic is shown in TV and movies because a brand is paying for that representation. Soda companies, car companies, designer labels, etc. have been known to have huge budgets for product placement deals, and it might be hard for a production to turn down those offers. As Scott C. Burns, one of the producers of An Inconvenient Truth, is saying, the first step for the industry is starting a candid conversation with these companies and brands about greenwashing, about the misuse of content, and whether or not the brand inclusion will damage the message of the movie or show being made. So couldn't the film just pick a more sustainable company for product placement and then decline the offers from big polluting companies? Well, most companies that are actually sustainable do not have million-dollar budgets for product placement. So at this point in time, realistically speaking, if we're looking at what people in the industry that really want good change to happen, it doesn't seem like the perfect partner for brand deals exists at this point in time. What these productions need to do is demand more from their partners overall. A lot more is going to happen if not only consumers are demanding more from these big billion-dollar corporations, but if their partners, if the people they're working with, if other industries are starting to demand more from them, both in terms of transparency, supply chain issues, sourcing of products and resources and ingredients, all that kind of stuff. If we're starting to see other companies, other industries pushing for more sustainable products, that could be really cool. What I hope to see more of in the future is more product placement restriction laws, as well as more sustainable organizations and initiatives helping film productions with funding. Now, it's no secret that the main motivator in Hollywood is cold hard cash. And the profit-driven mentality of a lot of people working within this industry often results in these big corporations getting exactly what they want. Hollywood is in many ways its own little microcosm of capitalism, but that doesn't mean that it cannot ever improve or change. As I said, when you have a multi-million-dollar budget, I do not want to hear this was too inconvenient. Is it all bad? No. It's never all bad. It's much more complex than that, obviously. And there are many examples of people trying to go the extra mile. Now that mile might vary in actual distance. Some might be doing more than others. But there are people that are trying to do better. The director of The Day After Tomorrow carbon offset the whole production out of his own pocket and encouraged his agents to do the same thing. All print material for the Spider-Man 3 press tour was carbon neutral. I mean, they were still flying all over the world to promote the movie. The Matrix sequels worked with the non-profit organization The Reuse People and recycled over 97% of the sets. 1,500 tons of lumber from the sets were used in housing for low-income families in Mexico. Now, here's some of the changes that could make a huge positive impact in the film industry. First of all, reduce traveling and work with renewable energy providers. Use sustainable businesses in the film industry like EcoSet in LA or Resource Exchange in Philadelphia, who encourage reusing and renting props and film sets instead of buying everything brand new, which is the industry standard today. Stop romanticizing overconsumption, explosions, and destruction of material. Reuse sets, wardrobe, props, all that kind of stuff. Instead of building sets from scratch, use actual authentic businesses. That way you're also supporting a local community and not building your own little microcosm of a community where things are just disposable. So if you have a scene that's set in a cafe, rent out a local cafe with that vibe you're looking for and support that business. Also, that means you don't have to buy all those props. Implement discourse about climate change, environmentalism, recycling, reduction of impact, etc. into the narrative, into the stories that you're telling. Encourage virtual planning. If the lockdown taught us anything, is that a lot of the time what was a meeting in person could just have been a Zoom meeting. Or even better, just an email. And lastly, work with other production firms and people within the industry that have more experience. It's completely fair that not a lot of filmmakers are experienced when it comes to changing up things and making sure things are more sustainable. So sharing knowledge and experiences with other people within the industry will make it easier to be more sustainable. in the future. Often when I make these impact videos, I end up feeling a little bit disheartened because you go through so much evidence that suggests that something is just deeply wrong. However, I very rarely want to end on a bad and negative note, because while there are lots of things we need to change, while there are lots of things that need definitely to improve, there are also definitely still good here. Recently, I released a video about also myself being in sort of a zero waste slump, so I don't want to end this on a negative note, because I already feel a little bit like my actions doesn't really matter. I feel a little bit small in my habits and what I'm doing. So I don't want other people to sit and have that feeling, because that's not a productive feeling, y'all. Because together we can have a huge positive impact. Together, an audience can actually change an industry. Fishtown Films made the very first zero waste movie, something that has never been done before. No other film studio has ever dared to try this or ever thought about that being a priority. Ciytywide made only 500 grams of trash over 3 years, and now it is up to us as the audience to support this indie film and prove to Hollywood that we are demanding and supporting sustainable productions of entertainment. So invite your friends over for an environmentally conscious zero waste movie night. Show them all about your sustainable lifestyle, or just hang out, chill, and eat a big bowl of popcorn while enjoying a zero waste movie. You know, for the planet. And that was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you guys liked it. If you have any comments, follow-up questions, anything of the sort, leave them down below. And if you have any suggestions for future environmental impact analysis videos, also leave those down below. I would love to hear what you guys want to watch. Other than that, just take really good care of yourselves. Until next time, I will see you. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green zero waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!